what I'd like to do is for you to do a little bit of meditation. But before you do that, just reflect and ask yourself at this moment which you prefer, meditating or talking. You don't have to tell anybody, but if a stranger walked by, they would never have guessed that this is a meditation session. So maybe you can extend your mindfulness into activity that you're doing around the place, so that it's not just while you're in the hall or when you're doing an exercise, that your mindfulness is a continuing, ongoing thing. Because if you do that, then the subject of my talk today is insight, then you will have insights. You'll have insights about yourself and about others and about the situation. So that would be useful because insight is an elusive quality or an elusive mind state. It's not something in which you can train directly. It arises as a consequence of training in other areas. So the beginning of training in other areas is to extend your training in mindfulness into activity. Okay, now I'd like you to meditate for a few minutes. I'll ring the bell when it's time to start. And when you've finished, that is when the bell goes, see if you can explore your experience and see what you recognized during that time. So I'll take you through it again, but first of all, I'll ring the bell and just let your mind, first of all, come to rest. So you do the settling, grounding, resting. Are you all familiar with those three, or shall I take you through them? I'll take you through them. All right. So, first of all, be comfortable. If you can, have your back reasonably straight. Could you begin by focusing on your breath? Particularly notice the out breath. And how your body relaxes each time the breath goes out. Thoughts will appear in your mind. This is normal, you don't have to try to block it. See if you can notice how thoughts appear by themselves. So we call them involuntary appearances, because they don't have any substance or solidity, but they appear. Then can you notice that as soon as thoughts appear, the mind goes towards them. This movement is what we call the tendency to engage. Tendency to engage. A tendency is a movement of the mind that happens by itself. although there is the tendency to engage, the mind will not engage the appearance until you join in the show. You decide to act on the tendency. Until that happens, it just remains a tendency on the one hand and an appearance on the other. Now you could ask yourself, how is it that you know this activity is going on? How is it that you know that thoughts appear in the mind? How is it that you know the mind has this tendency to do various things? The answer to that question is because within your consciousness is awareness. Awareness reveals. All our training with the mind is focused on training awareness, connecting more and more with the revealing power of awareness. Did you experience awareness? What is enabling you to know what's going on at this moment? First of all, you are awake. That's a prerequisite for being in touch with the world around you. So you're awake. Secondly, you're awake and conscious. You can sometimes be awake and not very conscious. And then, what would be the third? Aware. You're aware. Awareness is a quality that is extensive. It's like the sky. You don't change awareness. You don't become focused into awareness because it's already there. What we do is we become aware of it. Aware of awareness. That's part of our training. All right? Then we can go through the 3 stages of quietening the mind. First of all, you go through settling. You arrive at settling. First, you go through grounding. And grounding, you bring your attention into your body. I think most of you did that. You did it pretty well, because did you notice how the hall became very quiet? And a different quality immediately began to assert itself. And a quality which enables us to start the exploration of finding out more about ourselves. Then the second stage you go through is grounding. Grounding is quite important because a lot of people are quite ungrounded. So the grounding, you use your body. You become aware of the body, and you become aware of the solidity and the physicalness of your body, settling on the ground or on the chair. And as you become grounded, the tendency to be caught up with all the little thoughts, all the fluttering activity, will immediately subside. You'll notice as you ground the body, the mind changes. So even if you don't think you're a very good meditator, and even if you think you don't really know or understand how to do it, as soon as you go through settling, grounding, you will notice a difference happens just because you're doing that. So you don't have to struggle to make something special happen. As soon as you focus on settling and grounding, the mind will ground. And you'll still notice the tendency of thoughts arising, and you'll still notice the tendency to engage, but it'll be easier not to. It'll be easier just to let yourself be here. And then the third stage, which strangely is the most difficult for a lot of people, is resting. Resting in this place at this moment without doing anything. And that's the difficult part. So in order to be able to rest, it's necessary to become aware of the fact that thoughts are constantly appearing in our minds, number one. And number two, there is a constant tendency to engage. So thoughts are arising, tendency to engage. Thoughts arising, tendency to engage. And this is why, when you rest or when you meditate, you experience this continual movement of the mind. It's the mind moving to engage thoughts. And this is why we use a mindfulness support. Because unless we do, the mind is too fluid, it's too ungrounded, and it will just carry on moving around between thoughts. So you choose a support, sound or breath, whichever you like, and you continually turn your attention towards that. The support has no magic in itself. It is just there for you to turn to so that your mind can come to rest. Mind drifts away, engaging thought. You recognize thinking. Turn your attention back to the support and rest. So let's suppose you choose sound as your support. You turn your attention to sound. Not very much sound, is there? In fact, there's no sound at all. So you rest, open to the fact that you can experience sound. Then your mind drifts. Now, the exact nature of drifting is important to understand. It doesn't just drift waywardly. The mind drifts the moment it finds a thought it can engage. So the distracted mind, the drifting mind, is the mind that has been able to find a thought, or a potential thought even, and it will drift to that. So, for example, before the session, you may have been watching something on your TV, on your laptop, an exciting program. What you'll find is the mind holds and replays some of the program. It will flash images that were particularly potent. So, without quite realizing it, you're actually carrying that program with you. Have you noticed this? So then you sit to meditate, and you think, okay, now I'm going to ground and settle and all that. But these images keep flashing again, and after a while, your mind goes to them and engages them. And before you know it, you are rerunning the program you saw. So that is where you can have a moment of recognition. You recognize, oh, my mind has gone towards that and engaged. So now I will return to the mindfulness support and let go of that engagement. So you return, let's say breath now, you're focused on your breath, you return to that. But the mind is still half fascinated with that. Have you all noticed this? It's often not easy to tempt your mind away from the activity it's just been involved with into being in a resting state. So there will be like a stretching, almost as though two things are happening at once. And that's okay. Be content with that. And what you'll notice is quite interesting, that stretching is stronger than your mindfulness. So it will pull your mind back to the original thought. You realize you're thinking again, and you stretch back. So that is why, in the early stages of mindfulness training, distraction is the big issue. Constantly becoming distracted because of the natural tendencies within the mind. So there's nothing wrong with distraction. You haven't got it wrong or you haven't failed. It's just an inevitable consequence of where you are at this point in your training. As you train more and more with mindfulness, the period of non-distraction will grow. And when your mind goes into distraction, you'll see it more immediately. You'll see it more quickly. Until eventually, when you've reached the stage of a monk like Chöden, when you come to meditate, you will rest without distraction. That's quite...
It's called projection.
That's quite an accomplishment.